Looks like a pretty strong draft along the defensive line, and we're about to find out just how strong. Welcome into the Sporting News Studios. I'm Tom Vandervoort. Joining me now on the phone, as he does from time to time, Eric Galco of Optimum Scouting. And Eric, just talk about the defensive line position in this year's draft. How strong is it this year relative to years in the recent past?
Yeah, I think you could see as many 8 or 9 defensive linemen, if you kind of consider 3-4 outside linebackers defensive linemen as well, in the first round. Overall, I think there's going to be a lot of changes as far as what teams want in their defensive linemen, defensive ends, and defensive tackles, obviously, but also nose tackles, hybrid 5 technique guys. Everything of what you want in the NFL draft as far as a defensive lineman crop. I think this class has a lot of versatility, a lot of upside, and like I said, 9 out of 10 defensive linemen wouldn't be out of the question in the first round of this draft class.
Now, at the top of your board, when we break out just the defensive linemen, you've got Sheldon Richardson of Missouri. Talk about what he brings. I remember hearing for years growing up that defensive tackle position is just so hard to fill. Talk about Richardson and his ability there.
Yeah, Richardson's our top overall player in this draft class, regardless of position. And he's a guy who plays the nose tackles, 3 technique at the college level, plays at a very high level, great motor, fantastic athletic ability. Also ran some linebacker drills while in college and practice. That's how talented of a defensive lineman he really is. I think he's a unique athlete, can get up close as a pass rusher, can play wide in the run game and win in the short area as well as winning against double teams. I think Sheldon Richardson is a complete player at the nose tackle or defensive tackle position, can really fill any spot on that defensive line and did at Missouri over his career. I think he has a lot of upside and can help right now for an NFL team. That's why he's our top defensive tackle and defensive lineman in this draft class.
And talk about Bjorn Werner, Florida State, your top defensive end, second rated lineman behind Richardson.
Yeah, Werner's not a flashy defensive end. He's not a guy who's going to win with fantastic speed rushes, but he's a guy who extends away from his body well, has a good power rush, and can have a good motor on the outside as well. I think Werner comes in the league and is going to be maybe a Jared Allen type play with a high motor, work on the inside and outside, not giving up much in the run game, could be an efficient pass rusher. I think he comes in the league in year 1, he's a 7-8 sack guy, and he could be a 10 or 12 sack guy over the length of his career. I think Werner, safe pick at defensive end, not many injury concerns, a lot of production in college, and a guy who I think comes in the league and has production right away.
Now, Demontre Moore of Texas A&M was a guy a lot of people had rated fairly high until the combine. He dropped on a lot of people's boards. Is that what happened for you? Let's see, he's 13 on this particular list that we have from you. Is he the guy that's fallen recently, or have you always had questions about him?
Yeah, I think we've always had questions about him based on the fact that he is able to be consistently productive with his athletic ability. I think his lack of athletic ability showed on film and then showed at the combine as well. He's not a guy who's overly strong or overly quick off the ball, overly aggressive on the open field. I think he's a guy who wins with decision-making as a rusher and deciding how he wants to get to the quarterback and being effective in those situations. But he's not a guy that can consistently dominate at the NFL level, and that's why he's always kind of been a high second-round grade guy, but a guy who could play a 3-4 outside linebacker scheme as a 4-3 weak side defensive end, still has some versatility to his game and still getting better as a prospect. I think he has a lot of upside to be maybe a late first-round pick, but I feel comfortable taking him in the early second and seeing if he can become an NFL starter.
Gotcha. And finally, I always got to ask about sleepers. I noticed on this particular list, most of these things will have 1 or 2 guys sprinkled in from, say, the smaller schools, but these guys are all more or less from bigger schools. Who are some of the sleepers defensive linemen in this draft? Yeah,
I think 2 guys stand out to me. One, Quanterus Smith from Western Kentucky, still an FBS school, one of the smaller FBS schools. He's a guy who was playing fantastic early part of the season. Actually had a fantastic game against Alabama and their great offensive line. Been a serious knee injury and has been out since then. Still working on recovering from that knee injury. Hopefully ready to go for workouts for NFL teams. He's a guy who has first-round upside that could be gotten in the 3rd or 4th round, especially because of his injury history. And also David Bass, Missouri Western. He's a guy who, while at the East-West Shrine game, is a good athlete, works well in the short area, has great speed rush on the outside as well. I think he's a guy who could play in a wide 9th scheme in the NFL and have a lot of success as a 4th or 5th round draft pick to be a defensive end and a rotational guy at first with the upside to be a starter.
All right, very good, Eric. That's great stuff. Thank you so much. We'll talk to you again soon.